Hi, everyone. It's Seth Robinson. This week, there was an article in the Wall Street Journal that a few different people sent me, and I had some conversations about people with it. And the headline of the article was, IT departments are full of busy work. Will AI help? Obviously, the AI is kind of the hook of the article, and we're going to talk about AI on this show in the future. We're going to talk a lot about AI, but probably not today. The thing that actually jumped out to me in the headline and in the article was this notion of quote unquote IT departments and the fact that they have busy work. And I think what this is playing on is a lot of people's stereotypical traditional notions of an IT department. At CompTIA, we've spent a lot of time and energy kind of fighting those stereotypical notions because the technology function at a lot of companies has changed pretty dramatically over the past even 10 years. And to even call it the IT department, I think still carries a lot of those connotations. And it makes people think about people that are doing laptop deployment or people that are just making sure that the servers are up and running. And in fact, the example that was in this journal article was about laptop deployment. But there's so many other things that are going on at the technology function. And I think one way to look at it is to think about the first job that a lot of people could get if they're trying to start a technology career. Maybe 20 or 30 years ago, those first jobs were usually limited to IT support or network administrator. Again, these are very traditional things. This fits in with what a lot of people are thinking about. IT support is really that first job that a lot of people might get. It requires a little bit less training, and it allows them to get into that network position or into infrastructure. Some people might take a little bit additional training and they would get straight into a network role or maybe a systems role. And so for a long time, those were kind of the two entry points into a technology career. But it's expanded quite a bit now. We're not just talking about support or infrastructure, even those things still exist. We're talking now about software development quite a bit more. We talk about cybersecurity and we talk about data. All of these have valid entry points for somebody that's starting a career in technology. And in fact, if we go back to the IT support role that used to be this feeder into IT infrastructure, a lot of companies now use that IT support role to feed still into IT infrastructure, but to feed into any of these other job families as well. So an IT support technician can take a job as a software developer or take a job in cybersecurity or data. Now, for those people that are willing to do a little bit more training before they would take that first role, there are still entry points in each of these job families. You still have that network admin or systems engineer. Depending on the company, it would be called different things, but it's kind of a junior position, starting out with the infrastructure team, keeping the networks and keeping the systems up and running, increasingly working with cloud computing. On the software space, there's a lot of different places where someone might start. Typically, it's not just called a software developer. You might be called a front-end engineer, a back-end engineer, maybe a full-stack engineer, but your first job can be as a software developer, and you're usually writing programs for a company, not necessarily programs and applications that they would sell, but things that they're going to use internally. And so there's a whole career that can branch out in software, even if the company itself isn't a software vendor. The two newer areas these days are data and cybersecurity. And a lot of companies are looking at data. They want to analyze data more. They want to do more with their data. They find that they actually have to structure that data and they have to manage it and they have to be putting it in the right storage locations. And so there are a couple of different entry points in data. One is as a data analyst, which a lot of companies are looking for, and that gets talked about quite a bit. But another one is as a database administrator, which is a fairly traditional job. It's been around for quite a while, but there are a lot of companies that don't have these people on board. And they really need a database administrator to help do some of that structuring and that management before they can do the analysis. And then finally, in cybersecurity is a job family that tended to branch off from infrastructure. So if somebody was a network administrator and they were getting advanced to be a network engineer and getting some promotions and getting more experience, they might begin to specialize in cybersecurity, and then they might branch off where cybersecurity would become their full-time job. Now companies aren't just looking for cybersecurity professionals to come from the infrastructure team. They might be hiring them right out of college, or they might be hiring somebody that has a certification and starting them down a cybersecurity pathway in their career. And we at CompTIA call this a cybersecurity specialist. Other companies might call it an analyst or something like that. But it is kind of this first job in cybersecurity, doing a lot of different things and then eventually specializing as you advance in your career. So I think that complexity really shows that the IT department has become something much different than in the past. And as people are considering these different ways to start a technology career, it always starts with digital fluency and being able to apply digital know-how to business problems. And then you begin building your targeted skills that would allow you to get into one of these entry-level roles in one of these job families. So there's a lot of complexity there. Maybe in the future, we'll talk more about whether AI can or cannot handle all of this complexity. But for now, I think that's a good view of the way that we're kind of seeing the technology function evolve at a lot of companies. So for more information, please check out CompTIA's website at comptia.org, and we'll see you on the next Trend Watch.